It is over for Pete Hegseth, and it's not just me saying that. Those closest to him believe it as well, because in some shocking breaking news, we just saw that Pete Hegseth's top aide not only quit, but is going public about just how bad the situation at the Department of Defense is, dropping a huge bombshell, career-ending, on Hegseth that we are going to get into. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way, and it really does mean a lot to me. Now, it never should have gotten to this point. Pete Hegseth should have never even have been confirmed. And with all this conversation around Abrego Garcia and the tattoos that Donald Trump thinks are justification enough to ship a man unjustly to El Salvador, I think it is important we revisit something about Pete Hegseth that maybe should have gotten in the way of his confirmation in the first place. So before we get into this article, I want to check out this clip from MSNBC.
Much of the outrage fueled by his tattoos, which include a symbol known as the Jerusalem cross on his chest, another saying Deus Vult, Latin for God wills it, and a common battle cry during the Crusades, the religious wars led by Catholics to convert Muslims a millennium ago. Those symbols also used by groups that associate with Christian identity. The Southern Poverty Law Center, which tracks hate groups, defines that as an anti-Semitic racist theology that asserts white people are favored by God in the Bible. That includes Christian nationalist and pro-Confederate groups, among those in full force during the January 6th Capitol attack. We spoke about those symbols with Matthew Taylor, a scholar on this topic and recent author of The Violent Take It by Force, the Christian movement that is threatening our democracy.
In both of these symbols, there's an invocation or at least a reference to the Crusades. Now, the Jerusalem cross, that gets used all over the place. The Deus Vult tattoo tends to signal more far-right extremism. I do not know of any mainstream Christian groups or leaders who have embraced that in the modern world.
A U.S. military official told our Courtney Kuby in November that those tattoos prevented Hegseth from being on the D.C. National Guard security detail for President Biden's 2021 inauguration, out of an abundance of caution for the symbol's alleged connections to those groups. Hegseth defended his tattoos to senators, saying he's been unfairly labeled as an extremist. He did not mention the Deus Vult tattoo, but did note the Jerusalem cross even appeared at the funeral of President Jimmy Carter last week.
On the front page of his program was the very same Jerusalem cross. It is a Christian religious symbol. Things like focusing on extremism, Senator, have created a climate inside our ranks that feel political when it hasn't ever been political.
Hegseth has openly embraced his evangelical Christian faith as a core part of what drives him. And to be clear, there is no evidence he has any direct involvement in any extremist groups. But he has evoked the Crusades in the past.
How is it that conservatives think that tattoos are enough to ship someone to El Salvador without due process, but Pete Hegseth's aren't enough to question whether or not he should be Secretary of Defense? This scandal is not just on the shoulders of Pete Hegseth. It's not just on Donald Trump. It's also on every single Republican that voted to confirm him, who have put us in harm's way because Pete Hegseth is sharing all of the information that is most sensitive in our military with everyone around him. He is completely unfit for the job that he has, and even those around him know, with one of his top aides saying all of that in this brutal article right here. Former Pentagon official warns department's dysfunction could topple Hegseth. The last month has been a full-blown meltdown at the Pentagon. John Ulliott, the former top Defense Department spokesperson, wrote in a Politico magazine opinion piece, "The Pentagon is in total chaos, and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth is unlikely to remain in his role," according to its former top spokesperson, who painted a scene of dysfunction, backstabbing, and continuous missteps at the highest levels of the department. "The building is in disarray under Hegseth's leadership," Ulliott wrote in Sunday Politico magazine opinion piece. "The dysfunction is now a major distraction for the president, who deserves better from his senior leadership." Oyot, who resigned from the Pentagon last week, described a department in collapse. He accused Hegseth's team of falsehoods about why 3 top officials were fired last week, saying they hadn't leaked sensitive information to the media. He chastised Pentagon officials for how they handled revelations that Hegseth shared sensitive military information in a Signal chat, and he pointed to other leaks that caused embarrassment to the administration. The remarkable accusations by a former official who left only 2 days ago and insists he still supports the Trump administration's national security policies underscores the infighting and upheaval that has turned increasingly public in recent weeks. But he also found himself in the center of several controversies that added to the chaos. Oyot was sidelined after he defended the removal in March of a story discussing the service of baseball legend Jackie Robinson, part of a larger purge of diversity-related military web pages. The last month has been a full-blown meltdown at the Pentagon, and it's becoming a real problem for the administration. The Pentagon on Friday fired top staffers, also saying that Hegseth's own chief of staff will also leave his role in the coming days for a new position at the agency, according to a senior administration official. Politico was the first to report the firings in Casper's move, which one defense official ascribed to personality clashes between the chief of staff and the other men. Hegseth is now presiding over a strange and baffling purge that has left him without senior advisors, Oyot wrote. More firings may be coming, according to the rumors in the building. The 3 fired staff backed up some of Oyot's claims in a Saturday post on X, saying they didn't know why they were terminated. The trio wrote that they have not been told what exactly they were investigated for, if there is still an active investigation, or if there was even a real investigation of leaks to begin with. They charged that unnamed Pentagon officials have slandered our character with baseless attacks on our way out the door. They expressed support for the Trump administration's mission to make the Pentagon great again, but did not mention Hegseth, with whom they'd worked closely. Oyot's comments will likely make more trouble for Hegseth, who remains under investigation by the Pentagon's Inspector General for his use of Signal to disclose sensitive information about airstrikes in Yemen, with the New York Times reporting today that Hegseth allegedly set up a Signal chat with his wife, a former Fox News producer, and his lawyer, in which he disclosed potentially classified information on upcoming airstrikes against the Houthis. How much more idiotic could it get? It is, I can't even articulate how baffled I am, which I shouldn't be, by the incompetence of Pete Hegseth. If he was willing to participate in one Signal chat, it should come as no surprise that there were so many others. But you just have to ask yourself, what state was he in when participating, creating, and sending information in these chats? And that was a question that was asked just a little bit ago about a hearing over Signalgate, and I want to take a look at what the GOP response was.
The main person who was involved in this thread that a lot of people want to talk to is Secretary of Defense Hegseth. And a lot of questions were brought up regarding his drinking habits in his confirmation hearing. To your knowledge, do you know whether Pete Hegseth had been drinking before he leaked classified information?
I don't have any knowledge of Secretary Hegseth's personal habits.
Director Radcliffe, same question. Yes or no?
You know, no, I'm going to answer that. I think that's an offensive line of questioning. The answer is no. I find it interesting that you want to. No, I'm going to answer. You asked me a question. You want an answer?
No, listen.
You don't want to focus on the good work that the CIA is doing, that the intelligence community.
Director, I reclaim my time. Director, I reclaim my time. Here, I have huge respect for the CIA, huge respect for our men and women in uniform. But this was a question that's on the top of minds of every American, right? He stood in front of a podium in Europe holding a drink. So, of course, we want to know if his performance is compromised. If people were asking if the General Austin was compromised because of a heart issue,
was his performance compromised because of a successful strike?
I yield back. Mister, I bring my...
you want to know, you want to talk about accepting responsibility? Do you think you should accept responsibility for a successful strike to make Americans safer? You want to focus on...
I reclaim my time. So here's the thing. This is serious. As somebody, we've been briefed in this committee about using Signal. One of the things they basically said, the most secure phone call, the least secure text messaging. And we know that your people are Russians, Chinese are on your phone.
Gentleman's time's expired.
For them to be so offended by that question is ridiculous. We have every right to know, and we still haven't found out what was the state that Pete Hegseth was in when he was leaking all this information that he clearly is so happy to share with anybody and everybody. It is a disgrace, and it put people in harm's way. That is exactly what Congressman Jason Crow also called out in this clip right here.
The Office of the Director of National Intelligence Classification Guide says, quote, information providing indication or advance warning that the U.S. or its allies are preparing for an attack, end quote, is to be classified as top secret. Are you familiar with that?
Yes.
Director Gabbard, have the Houthis indicated an ability to shoot down American aircraft?
Yes.
They have in fact done so, haven't they?
Yes.
Including MQ-9 Reapers, haven't they?
That's correct.
And that was one of the systems used in the attack recently that's the subject of this discussion, is it not?
Correct.
General Cruz, are you familiar with this system?
I'm not wearing my glasses at the moment, but...
Well, I'll help you out. This is an SA-3 anti-aircraft system.
Correct.
Are you familiar with this next system?
I am.
What is it?
I'm going to have to ask you.
It's an SA-6.
I'm going to guess that...
This is also an advanced anti-aircraft system, is it not?
It is. It was used widely in the Balkans in the 90s, correct?
And the Houthis also have this system, don't they?
They certainly do.
And they've employed it against our aircraft, have they not?
They have attempted to, correct.
I spent my life in service to this country. I deployed 3 times to combat in service to this nation. I learned in that time in service that responsibility is core to leadership. You accept responsibility when things go wrong. You admit mistakes. You set the standard from the very top. It is completely outrageous to me that administration officials come before us today with impunity, no acceptance of responsibility, excuse after excuse after excuse, while we send our men and women downrange to do incredibly difficult, incredibly dangerous things on our behalf. And yet, nobody is willing to come to us and say this was wrong. This was a breach of security and we won't do it again. It is outrageous and it is a leadership failure, and that's why Secretary Hegseth, who undoubtedly transmitted classified, sensitive operational information via this chain, must resign immediately.
Again, we probably should have seen this coming, but it has to be the end for Pete Hegseth. We have already seen senators, members of Congress who called for Hegseth's termination before double down as they should, and we need more calls. We need to point to this chaos that is putting people in harm's way. This is the most incompetent administration in history. We're going to be calling that out every single day on this show, and if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video, and if you stuck around to the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you soon.